Welcome to Get Moving TV. I'm Dr. Chris Landon and I serve as your host. We're here in Ojai today. We made a little field trip here to the village jester. Nigel Chisholm, who will be a guest later, has served graciously as our host. The reason I came out to Ojai is there's a lot of things here in Ventura County we just don't hear about in Ventura. Here we have the Nomad Gallery, and with me today is Dr. Skanke. Welcome, Dr. Skanke.
Thank you.
When I first moved to Ojai, I think probably half the town had been delivered by you, and then the other half over the next 20 years or so. Yeah. But I see you're wearing a Rotary shirt today.
Yeah.
So what kind of things have you been doing? Something that has to do with the Nomad Gallery, I think.
Basically it started out with Nomad Foundation, and when I retired, I was looking for something to do and to get involved. Rotary was the answer for that, really. Rotary has as its motto, service above self, and that was exactly what I was looking for, and so have got involved with that and had an opportunity to do a number of trips which involved helping and serving. So
what kind of trips were those? Because part of what we're looking at is there comes a time in our lives where we want to give back, and we really want to work on people giving back early and earlier, not waiting, and taking that time throughout their lives to enrich their lives. So what kind of trips did you take, and how did it enrich your life?
It enriched my life fantastically. One of the things I think most of us face when we're going through retirement is, what I faced anyway, what am I doing here? I need to have some purpose in life, and that was my feeling. And so being a physician was a great asset for that, because it was really the dessert of my life, medical life. I've been down to Nicaragua doing things. I've been down to Mexico doing things. Most of them with Rotary. I've been along the Amazon for a month doing a medical clinic down there. Been to Roatan, where I'm still going there, and that's in Honduras. You know about that. And I've been to Tonga in the Pacific Islands, and that was really, really interesting. So each one of them has been a real adventure for me, because, I don't know, as a young kid I was read about these fascinating places, and so I got a chance to visit them, and really enjoyed it, really loved it, and the people loved what I did, and it was just a really neat experience.
Well, sometimes with those trips we kind of end up being the circus in town, and the circus is in town, here's something enjoyable to do, and we'll bring the child in, and then maybe they'll not be sick, but they're going to see that famous doctor from the United States. And then after a while, you start to realize, if I'm going to leave something behind, I need to change what happens there. Right. I need to teach that person to fish. I can't just keep bringing them fish.
Exactly.
I need to teach them to fish. So how has your project in Niger progressed?
In Niger was, of course, in part sponsored by Nomad Foundation, Leslie Clark. And I got started on there with her about 5 years ago. She came to Rotary, and I was giving a presentation about some of my trips. And she said, I need a doctor. And I said, I'm the man. So for the first 3 to 4 years, we had built a clinic there in Niger. And we basically saw patients in the clinic, and they appreciated it. They had many diseases that we didn't have here, malaria and a lot of tropical diseases as well, even though it's near the desert. But after about 3 or 4 years, every time I'd come back, they'd be sick again. I was going no place with it. And so, being an obstetrician, I looked around and got a little bit more information and found out that in Niger had the highest mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate and maternal mortality rate, that's with the women and with the babies, in the world. 1 out of every 7 women would die sometime during their life in labor. That was really high. And that was for the whole country, and not for these people that we were dealing with the nomads, who had no medical care at all, and it was very interesting that these people were living like they did back in the time of Abraham. No, I'm really serious. Yeah, the one advance that has happened in the last few years is, if you could guess, is cell phones. They're all over the world. And so I did a fair amount of research. I called and talked to a lot of doctors who've been overseas. I did as much research as I could about how would you increase their knowledge and care for their women. And so it really paid off, because we went there and we have worked out of a total of about 9 encampments. These are people that are sort of on the move. And trained them. These are women chosen by their leaders who were completely illiterate. None of them could write or read. But they had brains that were just like sponges, and they were really interested. And within 2 weeks, it was 2 weeks spread up, 1 week and then come back another time for another week, we were able to teach them to even do breech deliveries at more effectively. We had no IVs for them. They were out in the country. We had no shots for them, so it was all, basic stuff. And whereas they normally have those who die, about a third of them or more die of postpartum hemorrhage. And then the rest of them are infections or other. Mainly, one of the big problems is dehydration, because they just don't get much fluid. Anyway, these girls, to this point in our training for them, we've had about 170 deliveries, have not lost a mother, have not lost a baby born alive, because we got problems in labor dealing with them.
What leaves me speechless, how you've changed a culture where 1 in 7 women dies in labor to no deaths in 170 deliveries, and doing it with people who are unable to write, forgot to go to medical school, if we don't know how to read, and yet you've changed the lives of a country. And your intention is to keep going back. Now, through Ventura Global Health, it's time for some of us to really extend what we do. And so what are the plans with Ventura Global Health and the Nomad Foundation?
Well, what we're looking for is for them to develop a program that the people in our country, in Roatan, in Niger, can progress on their own, sustainability. And so far we have got educated the number of women that we need to. And that's pretty much covers the area that we can deal with these ladies there. We've also trained trainers over there, nurses from Niger, and so they can do their training. We have started working with the people who lead these various encampments to get them to buy into the program, so that they will pay these midwives and pay for the material that is needed to be as the expendables. And then that only leaves us a follow-up education. Like we as doctors have to have a yearly so many hours of study, and we need people to go back there and do that, and then it'll be totally self-sufficient program. And so that's basically what we're looking for. That we took advantage of having cell phones, and we have a permanent trained nurse from that area, from Agadez, and they're there 24/7 in the clinic. And so when one of these ladies has a complication, they can call in and get guidance as well. And that's one of the advantages. And that's why we have a limitation of these number of units. For the last 10 years, but prior to 10 years ago, they were continuously on the move, and they moved all their older people and their younger people. But about 10 years ago, they started to do semi-permanent units where they could leave the people who are really not necessary to go with the animals. And so that's an area that we can deal with. So, we're looking forward to having the support of the Ventura Global Group, because they're going to allow young residents or young doctors who are interested in obstetrics to come and work with us and to help sort of follow up, and each doctor will have his own little thing that will make things work a little bit better, and so over the years I think it will grow and do really, really good. I'm also looking for other countries to do the same thing, and right now we're looking at Tibet as a possibility too, so I want to go on and on.
Well, Dr. Skanke, thank you for all that you do, of course, and we'll have information available how to support Ventura Global Health, how to support the Nomad Foundation. Right. And Ventura, it's time for you to get moving to help these guys out, but our young doctors need to get there to Niger and to Tibet. We'll be right back.